Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. It's a pleasure to have you with us. My name is Maider, and I am the Training Initiatives Advisor. On behalf of Basque Culinary Center, based in San Sebastian, I would like to thank you for being here today and for your interest in this webinar. We are very excited to see such a diverse audience joining us from all over the world. A warm welcome to everyone attending this session. Today's webinar is titled Sensory Analysis and Consumer Science, from Research to Real-World Applications. First of all, we will watch an introductory video about GOE, Gastronomy Open Ecosystem, a pioneering space in Europe driven by Basque Culinary Center in Donostia, San Sebastian, where innovation, creativity, and excellence are ever present. I will introduce you to Raquel Mestre, coordinator of the master's degree in sensory analysis and consumer science, who will then present our three guest speakers for today: Rubén Barroso, Natalia Santamaría, and Marta Castillo. All three are alumni of Basque Culinary Center and are currently working in different companies in the field of sensory analysis. So now, let's begin by watching the video.
From Basque Culinary Center, where gastronomy is imagined as a living ecosystem, connecting talent, research, innovation, and entrepreneurship emerges. GOE, Gastronomy Open Ecosystem, a space where gastronomy transforms the way we eat, the way we care for ourselves, for one another, and for our planet, through shared ideas and experiences. Here, we cultivate a delicious future through food that is flavorful, healthy, and sustainable. An open ecosystem connecting talent, knowledge, ideas, and flavors. A place to learn, to experiment, to innovate, to create, and to share. Where every encounter becomes a unique experience. Where ideas grow into projects capable of reinventing gastronomy. Where education, research, and innovation come together to shape the future. An open home for everyone, where gastronomy is lived and felt. GOE, Gastronomy Open Ecosystem.
Okay, and after watching this video, I would like to remind you that you can send us your questions in the Q&A section. After our guest presentation, we will answer them. And now I would like to introduce you Raquel Mestre. Raquel is the coordinator of the master's degree in sensory analysis and consumer science. Hello, Raquel, how are you?
Hello, Maider. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Thank you very much for being here. Today, we'll explore real-world application of sensory analysis through the eyes of three fantastic professionals, also alumni from Basque Culinary Center. And at the end of the session, I will tell you about our new master degree in sensory analysis and consumer science, a program in which these three speakers will be also guest teachers. But before that, I would like to take a step back, because for those of you who are not very familiar with this field, that is something that we have observed, I want to clarify what sensory science actually is, since it's often misunderstood or simply unfamiliar for those who you are not from a food science background. Sensory evaluation is a science that measures, analyzes, and interprets people's reactions to products as perceived by the senses. It helps us determine whether people can detect a difference between products, what the basis for those differences is, and whether one product is preferred over another. But it can go much deeper, investigating why we perceive things differently and examining the cultural, genetic, physiological, and psychological variables that shape our perception. And what make it scientifically rigorous is that all conclusions are grounded in statistical evidence. whether using a trained panel or consumer panels that represent the target population of that research. So that being said, today our three guests will show you exactly how this science, that it can be like a little bit abstract, moves from the research into real world applications. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Rubén Barroso. Rubén is a PhD candidate at IPNA-CSIC and alumni of the Basque Culinary Center from the Bachelor. Rubén, thank you very much for being here.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I want to introduce myself a bit. I'm gastronomist from Basque Culinary Center. I have a master's degree in novel foods from the Autonomous University of Madrid, and I'm currently doing my PhD at the University of La Laguna in Tenerife in the Canary Islands. For the last 5 years, I have been working at the Spanish National Research Council, known as CSIC, where I really started working in sensory analysis, although my first contact was in my classes there in Basque Culinary Center. I am also the second student representative of AEPAS, that is the Spanish Association of Sensory Professionals. And what is maybe a bit different from my profile is that in my case, I come from the kitchens, from the restaurants, not from ingredients, statistics, or food science, that there is the classical maybe profile from people that is working in sensory analysis actually. I work in different kitchens, for example, the restaurant Noma in Copenhagen, and I come to sensory analysis because I'm really interested in flavor, but in flavor not only in the taste profile or this way, more in the multi-dimensional or multi profiling of sensory analysis or flavor. For example, all the different scents, the different aromas in the orthonasal and retronasal way, the mouthfeel sensations, textures, temperatures, trigeminal sensations, but also how memory, emotions, sounds, experiences can influence to sensory analysis, no, to us. Okay, so now I want to show you some of the different works where I was doing things, and with this way, I think that you can observe or think in different ways to work with sensory analysis. My first sensory study took place after I completed my master's degree with the group Flavorsen in the Institute of Food Science Research in Madrid, CIAL. It was a sensory analysis study focused on evaluating how the incorporation of functional ingredients could modify the aromatic perception and the acceptability of new beverages. This is really actual. The food industry is actually including a lot of functional ingredients or bioactive ingredients in their matrices. So it's important to understand how these supplementations can change our profile, our foods. No? To do this, we work with aqueous and diary matrices supplemented with different functional ingredients. And in this matrices, we include other volatile compounds, for example, green apple, chocolate, or other compounds that come not from an ingredient, or, for example, other blends, for example, this kind of juices or that we know as tropical or as Mediterranean flavors. And we try to understand how our panel that is conformed by 15 panelists that all them was trained, how they perceive in different ways, by the orthonasal way, also retronasal way. We have to make sure that we use the perfect or the appropriate methods and methodologies, you know, as as Raquel told you before, we have to choose the kind of scales that we use, the kind of test that we use to measure everything. So we have to make sure that we want to know if we want to know how is the acceptability in the consumer. So for example, if we want to describe one sample with experts or with other kind of panelists, no? So in this case, we measure accessibility and also this intensity of different descriptors in both ways, in the orthonasal and retronasal ways, and as sorry. Here. And as a result, we conclude that some compounds were perceived differently depending on the sensory pathway, and that third-time functional ingredients, specifically rice and chia proteins, change significantly the perception in both ways. Okay, so we have to consider sensory analysis when we want to put some new or novel foods in the market. After that, I want to share this other study that is completely different. In this case, it was developed in the Institute of Vine and Wine Science in La Rioja. I work in this project that is called Tactile Sensations. We usually heard about mouthfeel sensations. I don't like to talk about mouthfeel sensations because in mouth we have different sensations, not only touch sensations. In mouth, it appears for other things, for example, taste or retronasal olfaction. So I want to say tactile sensation or touch sensations of red wines. I start to work with wines in this moment. We published this article about how the wines work in our mouth with the touch sensations. Okay, so I'm sure that you heard sometimes with the tastings in wines words, for example, like involving or I don't know, soft or whatever, and it's like, okay, what is a wine that is involving me, or what is a wine that is soft? I can't understand. The thing is that when we, for example, for aroma compounds or for different tastes, we have some references that we can compare. But in the case of mouthfeel properties, we don't have enough compounds. We don't have compounds. We don't have references. So the objective of this study is to develop a material that we can use to try to define and to share with other people that we are talking about the same. No, so we take this mouthfeel part to understand. Okay. So we work with a lot of mouthfeel descriptors, with a lot of participants, with winemakers, technical staff, distributors, and other regular wine consumers to develop all the lexical part that is really important when we make sensory analysis, to develop this lexicon. And after that, we finish with 25 terms that are after categorizations, lemmatizations, and these kind of words that we usually do. This is the list with different languages. And after that, we collaborate with a design school that develop us different materials for transforming these words in real materials that people can touch. And after that, we make wine selections, trying to choose different wines with different touch sensations profiles for maximize the differences between wines. And after that, the people that are part of our study have to use these boxes that we standardize in this box, all the different references, touch references, and they have to describe not with the classical descriptors, verbal descriptors, if not with references, touch references, okay? So we determined that there is a relation between this touch sensation we have with hand and mouthfeel sensation in mouth. We can say that the methodology that we employ discriminate between different kind of wines in the mouthfeel or in the touch sensations in mouth way. We use also nose clips. You see here the nose clips we use for try to see if if we try to not consider the orthonasal or the retronasal aromas, if, for example, mouthfeel or touch sensations can be increased. But no, it's not necessary to use this kind of materials. We can do it without it. And finally, we are working in try to produce something like this kind of books that exist for, sorry that I'm, this kind of books that exist for other aromas or for other things, try to create a tool, no, for touch references that we can share and we can standardize. And finally, sorry, I'm working in this thing that I don't know if you know. I don't know if some of you have been here sometimes. Is Lanzarote in Canary Islands. I continue working actually in my PhD in the Institute of Natural Products and Agrobiology in Tenerife. And I'm trying to define an ill-defined descriptor that is volcanic character. A lot of people in the last year are talking about volcanic character, but we don't have clear what's volcanic, what the meaning of volcanic character. Okay, so here you can see a lot of different blogs, different social media, different newspaper talking about the taste, the flavor of the volcano. But I continue asking myself how a volcano smells, how a volcano tastes, what is the flavor of volcano in a glass of wine. Including some companies are actually selling this kind of barrels that they say that if you buy this kind of materials, you can transform your wine to a volcanic wine. So here it's important to do two things. First off, I want to say this because we are thinking all the time in quantitative methods in sensory analysis, but we forget all the time the importance of qualitative methods. Qualitative methods includes different tests. For example, focus groups includes other kind of tests that where you, as the researcher, go to the real file, to the real world, no, and you can make different interviews or different tests to understand better how they are talking about something in the sensory analysis. In this case, I make like semi-structured interviews to 53 different informants, different wine professionals in the Canary Islands, trying to understand how are the agreements and discussions that they have between them about what is a volcanic wine. Because if you can use a barrel for make a volcanic wine, you can imagine how is the different discussions that appears in the world. No, because my wine is more volcanic because come from the high altitudes. No, my wine is better because it's close to the volcano. No, my wine is better or more volcanic because have ashes in the floor. And so there are a lot of different conditions that they usually fight between them for what is volcanicity, no, or what is volcanic character. So I make this kind of studies like in a qualitative way first to understand how is the social construction of the cultural file of the descriptor volcanicity or volcanic character, where different actors are talking about them and creating these mental representations by themselves, but sharing with others in their own island or in their own sector, and all together are building the social construction or volcanicity. After that, for sure, I made some qualitative tests for know how the people consider this sample. I did these tests first with two different panels, one from here, from Canary Islands, another from France, in the region of Auvergne, that probably you don't know, but they have volcanoes in their floor. Their floors are volcanic. So I try to prove how two different panels from volcanic areas speak about wine, a volcanic wine. So I want to prove if they have the same mental representation in different areas that, for example, here in Canary Islands, we have the sea, we have other conditions that they don't have there. So we employed this kind of scores, 11-point scores with two phases of description, first visual and orthonasal evaluations, after global evaluations, and finally, we determined that, I know that these data maybe are not familiar for everyone, this kind of graphics, but in this graphic, we we want to explain how different descriptors are important in one panel and not for the other. No, some of them are significantly, another no. So it implies that the volcanicity in the wine is a mental construction, a construction, yeah, like that. That each that where knowledge influences a lot, and I can speak about that and from each descriptor a lot, but it's not the objective, I think. And finally, I come from California some months ago, where I continue studying volcanicity in wines, but with international wines now. You can see here these booths where the tasters are making the tests. You see there the red lights. They are used for cancel the halo effect for the people that don't be influenced for the color or for other things that they can see in the wine. So actually, I'm working with international volcanic wines and this concept. And finally, this is my profile, my email, and these things, and you can contact me if you need something or whatever. Mhm.
Thank you very much, Rubén. Really interesting. You are seeing like how in only one path you can apply sensory analysis in a lot of different ways. Actually, for our audience, those things like, for example, how we can translate the texture in like in a mouthfeel are things that we are going to see in the second semester in the subject neuromarketing. And also you can see like how you can apply sensory analysis in for different purpose on research. So now I'm delighted to introduce our next guest, Natalia Santamaría. Natalia is a sensory intelligence executive at Sensebit and also alumni of BCC from the Master in Gastronomic Sciences. And also, by the way, Sensebit is going to be a partner and the official software of this master. So Natalia, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I would like to start with like a simple idea, and this is like sensory analysis is no longer tasting products. So today, sensory analysis is becoming a strategy tool that connects science, consumer understanding, business decision making, and increasingly digital technologies and AI. So I would like to tell you my story and my experience. First of all, I would like to begin with the wine sector. I was a researcher, just as Rubén said. Well, he did the PhD. I didn't get to that, but I researched in the wine sector for like 3 years. So those of you that are familiar with designation of origin, you know that for a producer to commercialize a product under specifically denomination of origin, the product must comply with very strict microbiological, physical-chemical, and also sensory requirement. So in here, it's very interesting to know how a sensory panel is trained in order to give results that can comply with a product under a denomination of origin. So sometimes people think that sensory analysis is something subjective, but in reality, it's a part of a highly standardized and regulated quantity system. So my professional experience in these fields was precisely connected with this type of work. So I participate in the train and accreditation of a train panel for wine evaluation and certification. And this in here, I learned very quickly one thing, and it's that sensory analysis become really, really powerful when it's well done. I mean, when people use trained assessors with validated methodologies and with reproducible results. So this is well, when you start knowing a little bit about sensory analysis, you know that there are two different ways of sensory science. So one is with trained panels and the other one with consumers. So in here, I could learn a lot about what a trained panel does, and mostly was certificating products for origin denominations, but also I worked with a consumer panel also in the wine sector. So in here, what you want to know about people, it's not like strict attributes, but more like if they like the product or what they think, what do they think about it. So you learn something easily in the wine sector, and it's that people is not going to tell you what they really think. And this is a thing about consumers. And if you go out there and ask someone like, which type of pizza do you like, right? People is going to answer honestly and immediately. But if you ask someone what type of wine do you like, they are going to start like, oh, I don't know anything about wine. And they are going to think more about what they people will think about them if they answer one thing or another than their honest opinion. So that's why also sensory science are really important, because what do you want to know is why what they perceive, not the things that they are going to say, like their opinions. So this is like also a really challenged part of sensory science, more specifically consumer studies. So when you start working in this way, you realize that it's not only the opinions or the data, it's how to transform it into a decisions, business decision or market decisions. So that's the main reason that I started working for SenseSbit, is because SenseSbit is a software platform about sensory analysis, and this is like the second experience I want to share with you. I started to think like, okay, what do we do with these opinions or with this data? How we can transform this into real business decisions? So let me present. The question was, how can companies transform this sensory information that we get from the consumers or trained panels into decisions in business? So at SenseSbit, that we work with a SaaS platform specialized in sensory analysis. I mean, we are sensory experts that do this type of software. We combine here sensory science, advanced statistics, and artificial intelligence. So beyond the software itself, I think it's interesting how sensory analysis is expanding across the entire food industry. Okay, so for example, I'm going to give you like a little examples of why industries use sensory analysis. For example, to redesign products, to reformulate. So not only based on the intuition, like, I think this will be better if we add a little bit of sugar. No, through sensory analysis, you can take this type of decisions with real data and understand whether the changes are truly perceived for consumers or for trained panels. Also, to optimize shelf life. This is a very relevant point, because sometimes the moment of when the product loses the sensory quality appears much more early than the analytical, microbiological, or physical-chemical degradation. So understanding exactly when consumer perception change can help companies to optimize the shelf life and reduce unnecessary waste. Also for lots control, this is essential because there are some brands that have a really specific sensory identity. So it's really important that there are no difference between the lots. And also through sensory analysis, you can get this to be exactly the same from lot to lot. So all of these methodologies are really used in the industry sector, in the food industry, to get different objectives. But what's the problem nowadays with this type of things is like industries do this type of methodologies, but they use like Excel files, manual reports, disconnected departments. I mean, maybe quality do the self life, but then R&D do like the reformulation. So there is no connection between different departments in the sensory field. So also like it's slow to interpret different type of data. So it's very very important that technology it's also another level in the sensory analysis field. So in here I would like to tell you like an example of a company, a real case in which this is about a meat industry here in Spain. So they had a lot of product stock in a warehouse, and it was like perfect microbiologically and physicochemical. But then the sensory panel found a nut flavor. So they confronted like a question, no? What should we do with this product? So thanks to sensory analysis, they could really get the issue like really soon, and they could reformulate faster and sell the product anyway, you know. So this is another example of how sensory science can really mean something in industry, and also in a business level, in an economical level, and innovation level. And well, also, the last thing I wanted to share with you is that we think that sensory analysis is just a tool, quality tool, or research, but it's a really multidisciplinary field, because right now it's not just like the sensory technique that do something, or that make the taste. It's also like data analysis, digital platforms, statistics, mathematics, AI driven tools. So it's much more than people eating and then just saying I like this, I don't like this. So this is like, it's really good for the future of sensory science, because we can see here that it's not just one type of person, like super specific. No, it's just a great field ahead of us, and and that's it. Well, I also wanted to tell you like some of our clients here in Spain that use this at the same time that you are going to use the platform, and you are going to see like it's super easy to use. But here you can see some of the people that are already trusting us to make the sensory of their industries. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalia. I think that after her explanation, all of you understand like much better what is sensory analysis and how you can use it. And as Natalia was saying, this is a really multidisciplinary field. That's also why in this master we are going to see the psychological part, the neurological part, the social, cultural part, because to understand your consumer, you have to understand a lot of factors that then you can translate into data. Into data, sorry. So to close our speaker series, it's my pleasure to introduce our last speaker, Marta Castillo. Marta is a research and innovation sensory and consumer science manager at Danone, and another BCC alumni from the Master in Gastronomic Sciences. And having someone working at this level in a global food company like Danone is a great illustration of where sensory science can take you. So Marta, thank you very much for being here, and the stage is yours.
So good afternoon, everyone. And before I introduce myself a bit better, let me ask you first a question. So I wanted to start with this one. So look at this image and let's try to answer, what does this person need? And I know that most of us think of the object, so a book, and that makes sense. That's right, she's looking for a book. And this is what we call product attributes in the industry. But if we stop here, we miss the key point, because sensory and consumer science start when we go beyond the object and we ask something a bit deeper. That is, what does this person really gain from it? So what does he really want? She may want learning, enjoyment, pride, sense of achievement. All this is what we call consumer benefits. And that way of thinking is exactly what this field is about. It's about connecting the product attributes with what people actually get and feel that are the consumer benefits, and moving from designing products to designing meaningful experience, as also was my colleagues telling you before. So this is the shift from product centricity to user centricity. And it's super trendy today, you will see in companies, but this is for us something that we simply do every day in our work today. Now, yes, a bit about myself. So my name is Marta, and I'm super proud to be an ex-alumni of the Basque Culinary. I studied biotechnology in the University of Barcelona, and honestly, I was working in a lab in Cambridge by the time that I realized that I didn't want to stay in a lab anymore. I didn't want to stay in basic science, but I wanted something more applied. I wanted to be more close to real products and to real people. And then during that moment, I discovered the Master in Gastronomic Sciences. And honestly, it was great experience because it really opened my mind and it helped me to integrate disciplines that are now essential in my work today. And indeed, this is where I discovered the sensory science. So no turning back from that day. Honestly, since then, I've been working in sensory and consumer research, both in research agencies and later on company sites for more than 8 years now. And today I work in Danone. I work as R&I UX user experience, but it's the same user experience or consumer and sensory research for Danone. And I'm covering the south of Europe, but also I'm co-leading some brands at the European level. And my job, as also was saying before, is not just about tasting product anymore, not at all. It's about reducing the risk on business decisions. So I help to translate consumer data into insights, also to make sure that the consumer is at the center of everything that we do, because at the end, this is the final objective of our job. And in short, I act as the voice of the consumer inside the company. That is always very, very needed. And let's look now at a real example. For instance, here we have Yopro. Yopro is our high protein brand in Europe. You may know it. And this is one of the brands that I am helping to co-lead for Europe. So when we design this product, as I said before, success is not only about the protein or the product itself. What we need is to balance the emotional benefit, such as the feeling of progress or self-confidence that all of us are looking for, with also the functional benefits that can be strength, can be satiation or recovery. And our role is to make sure that all the product attributes or technical levels, for example, the texture in this case for the product, deliver the expected consumer benefit. We cannot be disconnected between the consumer benefit and the product attributes, because if the sensory expectation doesn't support that promise, I can promise you that the product won't work for the consumer. So this is what user-centric design really means in practice, let's say. And so far, we have seen what user-centric thinking means, but let's be a bit of more pragmatic here. So what this actually look like in our day-to-day for someone like me. And I like to say that we don't design only for consumer, we design for and with consumer. And this is very important because it's true that many times UX or sensory and consumer research is often seen as a final check of the product, but in reality, it supports a whole process. And it starts from understanding consumer needs and their context. It helps you to shape, let's say, the brief ensuring that this brief or this product that we are going to create, it aligns with the user needs, but also with the brand promise, because all this needs to be aligned in order to ensure that the product delivers what consumer is expecting from it. Then you can start the creation part. And for the creation part, you start co-designing with consumer, co-creating with them, learning from them. You can validate ideas, you can validate the final product in blind, in branded. Blind is when you don't have the brand, you don't have the pack. Branded is when you have the full mix that we call. You have the brand, you have the pack, and you have the formula. As I said before, you need to, all of them go into the same direction. And then we also have valorization of everything that we do. And we need to check, of course, all the quality and other topics. But what I wanted to say here is like that UX helps cross-functional teams to make better decisions at every stage and not only in one of them. So this is great in the sense that you are working when you are in this type of role. You are not really the person who is maybe doing the test itself, as in basic research, but you are the one working with marketing, working with operation, working with quality, with developers, and with many other stakeholders in order to ensure that in each step, you are taking the right decision to move forward and to make a project a success. So at the end, stakeholders management also is some of the key part of our job, and it's super interesting for those people who really like to be involved in different part of the process for a project. So, but up to now, honestly, everything sounds super nice in theory. I know also when you study the basic research, but it's true that being honest, the reality in a fast-moving consumer good company is much more complex than all of this, because in reality, many of our projects are driven by constraints. We have quality requirements, we have supplier changes, we have a lot of cost pressure in these times, and also productivity targets. Most of the time, we also have very tight timelines, and we have limited budget, because if we had all ideal world, of course, the process will be super nice. We will do all type of studies and exploration with consumers, but this is not always the case. And on top of that, we have different teams with different priorities. And this is where our role becomes very interesting, because the challenge at the end is not to design the perfect experience, but to protect what really matters for the consumers within all these constraints. It means thinking the full experience and not only one touch point. It means also balancing the speed with the depth. So knowing that good enough not always is enough. It's also about overcoming our internal biases and also about sustaining cultural changes and not only delivering a project, let's say. And most importantly, as I said before, it means building empathy across team, because we need to bring different perspectives together in order to make the project a success. And this is where sensory and consumer science really add value, is when you are able to take decisions that are difficult and when the constraints are real, and you make the best decision that you can make based on data, based on consumer and on sensory science, data, sorry, in order to the decision that the business is taking. So yes, anyone can make good products, honestly, but to create great experience, so one that the people can remember, that can love, that can trust your brand, you really need to embed, to include user centricity into the DNA of everything that you do. And you need to have a business mindset as well, because sometimes you see this role as something that is super technical, but it's not. You also can be closer to the business, as I am now, and you see the complete picture of projects and of the reality of the market. And then it's great to see that the data is only useful if it can help to risk to lower the risk, but with confidence, right? So at the end, it's a combination between science, people, and business, and I think this is the magic of this field applied to industry indeed. So that's all on my side. I think I went fast, but I can.
Thank you very much, Marta. Really, really interesting. Thank you all three. I think that now it's like really clear, like all the dimensions of sensory analysis. So now we are going to present our new master degree in sensory analysis and consumer science before we go for the questions. So this is a university master degree. That means that it's an official program. And after this program, you could apply if you want to do a PhD. It's a master of Basque Culinary Center. It's part of the Mondragon University and is hosted at GOE, Gastronomy Open Ecosystem, the building that I have behind me in the photo. And it's designed for professionals and graduates who want to specialize in this field that we are talking about and lead innovation in the food and gastronomy industry from a scientific and consumer-oriented perspective. This program was born from a very real need in our university. Through our Master in Gastronomic Sciences, one of the other official master degree at Basque Culinary Center, which this year celebrates its 10th edition, of which Natalia, Marta, and I we are alumni. We saw a clear pattern emerging. Like many students wanted to go further to specialize even deeper in sensory analysis. That is one of the subjects of this master. That's why seeing this need repeated cohort after cohort is what gave rise to the idea of creating this program specialized in sensory analysis, and we are proud to say that it's a master that is pioneer in Europe. The program, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, the program trains experts capable of applying advanced sensory analysis techniques in product development, managing research and innovation projects, and understanding the neurological, psychological, and sociocultural factors that influence consumer preferences and decision making. And I think that after all the example that you have seen today, is clear this master is for you to be professional, well trained in this specific field in food. So this is how the program looks like. The program spans 2 years. The first year is structured in 2 semesters. The program starts on October until June. The first semester builds the methodological foundation with introduction to research methodologies, statistics applied to sensory analysis. Yes, we have each credit of statistics because as all our speakers say, at the end, this is a science that is grounded in statistics. That's why it's really important in this master. Sensory methodology applied to consumer studies, sensory analysis applied to R&D, and project management. Also because, as Marta was explaining, you are going to be working among departments in food industry and in consulting. That's why it's really important for you also to have the tools to be able to work in projects. And in the second semester, go deep and integrate that knowledge with subjects like sensory panel training methodology, new technologies applied to sensory sciences, sensory marketing, neuroscience, psychological and genetics, ethics and regulations, because we are going to be working with people and humans, and that needs some ethics and regulations, and psychology and sociology applied to consumer studies. Those are also, these subjects are divided in different modules, and in all of them we are going to have theoretical classes, but also real challenges with industry, so you can have the experience of working with real companies, and also to apply that knowledge, because at the end we could be hours talking about how to do a focus group, but until you have to do it and you need to moderate it, it's a totally different experience. That's why it's really important for us. It's the Basque Culinary Center methodology, learning by doing. But in this master, it's really, really important because at the end, you are going to be working with people, and to be able to work with people to explain really well the methods is really important to have that practical part. And the second year is entirely dedicated to the final master project. It's kind of an internship in other universities, but in this case, you have to do a research in that company. It's not only to go and to work in that company, it's also to research there. It's an individual academic activity, and you have to demonstrate like your ability to apply all that you have learned in research development, innovation, or like applied practice contests. And this is a minimum of 5 months, and it could be in food industry, in different companies, in a technological center, in university, like in academia. You could do it like in different places. Probably as for where this like take you, and I think that our 3 speakers today are living proof. Graduates go into roles in R&D, sensory marketing, quality control, innovation and technology, management and consulting, and also like research and academia. But I think that I don't have to go like deeper in this because you have like really 3 really good examples today. But I can say that the demand for this profile is growing fast. It's kind of a new profile, but companies across the food sector are like actively looking for this new professional profile. That's all from my side. Here you can like scan the QR to have more information about the program. You can also write to Benedetta. You have there the email and also the phone. Also here you have my name. You can write me through LinkedIn, or you can directly go to the webpage and apply for the master. So now we are a little bit running out of time. We have 5 minutes left. So I'm going for the questions. Okay. The first question says, are there opportunities to learn how modern food environments influence overeating or addictive patterns? Yes, actually, you're going to see a lot of this in the in the second semester in neuroscience and physiology. Also a little bit maybe in consumer in the first semester, but there are like a lot of research saying how we feel like different, like we could eat even like 10 times more if we don't pay attention of what we are eating. And in the other side, there are also like a lot of scientific research that say that when you are eating like mindfulness, like you are aware of what you're eating and the quantity that you are eating, you eat much less amount of food. So we are going to see like why that happened, like how the brain works and why that happened in the program. Do you take on new students for the master program each year or every other year? So now we are in the admission process for the first year of this master. The enrollment process is open until July, I think. We are not having like all the interviews. So if you're interested in the program, we still like accepting admissions. Hi, I'm Fabricio, PhD student in agriculture, food and environment with a little background in Star Michelin restaurant. I'm working on animal production, agroforestry and animal food quality. Also, I'm working with aroma from lab meat, from different animal diet. What do you think from objective aroma identification and aroma perception? Do you think that in the future an electronic nose could be useful as a simulation for human senses? Actually, we have worked with electronic nose here at Basque Culinary Center. We have some articles I think that are in Spanish. I'm going to say completely my personal opinion. I think that it's a really good tool in the sense that is something objective, even that at the end, sensory analysis is going to translate a subjective response in something like objective. I will say that it's going to be different to have that objective data from an electronic nose compared with the human perception that at the end, again, is something like cultural, probably how a culture perceives one aroma compared with another culture is going to be like completely different. And how you relate that aroma with your culture is also going to affect how you perceive that, like if you like or not that aroma. So even that the electronic nose can tell you like which specific aromas are you having in this case aroma from lab meat. I think that is different to work with tools and with human, but I think that is complementary. Like you can complement the data from the consumers and from that trained panel with the data that you obtain from different tools, like in this case, the electronic nose. I don't know, Maida, if we have more questions. I think that, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, our participating, and we don't have more time for today. And if you have any question, the whole Basque Culinary Center team is here to help you. So thank you again to our master's degree coordinator, Raquel Mestre, and our guest panelists, Rubén Barroso, Natalia Santamaría, and Marta Castillo, for participating today in this webinar. So thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
Thank you very
afternoon.
much. Bye.